Do not adjust your audio. Your earballs are definitely hearing some new intro music. This is Breaking Down Security, the 2018 season. And I'm Brian Brake. With us this week, always, is Ms. Berlin and Mr. Boettcher.
Hi. I wasn't sure if you were waiting for me to introduce myself.
No, I'm trying to not use whisker words because I was told that was yes. So ahs, I'm going to try to cut down on those this year. This is a goal that I'm trying to do. So
okay.
Should we keep track? I
think I can ring this bell whenever you.
You're killing me. What every is $1 that's going to be given out to charity or whatever.
Yeah,
yes,
$1.
Yep.
You might
10 cents. Penny. We'll do penny. We'll do a penny. Fractions of a millionth of a Bitcoin or what have you. So yes,
00013.
Right. 00. Yes. So yes, 2018 season. We're starting our fourth year. At the end of this one, we'll be going on our fifth year. So if you are,
it's my 1 year anniversary.
I know. Congratulations. Welcome.
LinkedIn told me.
Yes. The cake will be arriving tomorrow. Don't eat it.
I don't need cake. I don't need cake.
Well, it's probably moldy anyway.
You never thought you would get this far.
I didn't. I thought you would kick me off already.
No, you are a valued member. And you just hit 10K followers on Twitter.
I did.
Today,
I'm so excited for that arbitrary number.
Yes.
I'm one of those, actually.
I was one.
Only one?
I should get $1.
Only one?
Well, I was one, and then I didn't, and then I did again. So now, yeah. So, yes, if you're new to the show, we are three people who enjoy doing podcasts. And actually, so we have some changes. There are, hope they're not too radical for everybody, but so we're going to bring Mr. Michael Gough onto the show for a second. Welcome, Mr. Gough, to the show. Hello. Don't get used to the Mr. Gough thing.
Okay, turn him off again.
Yes. Go back on mute. You're good. So, just a quick thing. The reason we changed the music is I couldn't remember where I got the music from, and I was worried about.
Want to get sued?
I didn't want to get sued. I want it to be pod safe, is what everybody likes to call it. So I got to find out. If I can find it where the old music was from, then I need to put it in the credits later on. But I got like 150 episodes to change if that's the case. So so announcements. One of the big things we're going to do this year, we brought Mr. Gough on, and him and Mr. Boettcher are going to create a separate podcast that is going to be part of the Breaking Down family of podcastery.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, because Mr. Gough and Mr. Boettcher like themselves some incident response. It's going to be called, aptly named, Breaking Down Incident Response, or BDIR in this case.
Yay!
Whereas we will be talking about everything on Breaking Down Security, including maybe some incident response stuff that may show up later in Mr. Boettcher and Mr. Gough's show. We'll do
a deeper dive.
Theirs is going to be a deeper dive. Exactly. So we might talk about a story about a school that got hacked, and we talk about some of, what happened there and, in a news segment where they might actually go onto their show and go into a deep dive of the malware and how they would eradicate it, which might be something we might talk about today. You can add that to the news link if you'd like, and we can just do a surface dive of the infection bit.
Way to have that come out of nowhere.
I know.
But I'll find it. I just got to do me some Googs.
Anyway, I think you put it in Slack. So, the Slack announcement, we still have a Slack. It's going well. We have about 950 people on there. We're going to get rid of the invite link that we're going to put in the show notes because we're worried about bots and Google SEO and just randos dropping on, and it hasn't happened yet, but we want to head that off. So we're not going to have like a, hey, here's how you can join our Slack, just randomly. If you want to get on, you have to DM us on Twitter or, email bds.podcast, which is, we've already had a half a dozen people do that. So that obviously is going to be a good workflow for us to do that. We just want to make sure that somebody doesn't show up at midnight, U.S. time and start spamming all the channels in our Slack. So,
well, I forgot that we switched to that. And then I had somebody DM me and I had absolutely no idea what they're talking about.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Like, oh, right. I need to do that.
Mistakes were made. And so, yes, email bds.podcast. I'm going to be giving Ms. Berlin and Mr. Boettcher access to the bds.podcast email. It's got 2-factor on it, so we're going to have the QR code, and everybody's going to have to sync it with their mobile devices. So, yeah. So that's where we're at. So, Ms. Berlin, what'd you do over the holidays?
I took my kids to a indoor water park, and that was a gigantic disaster, but we still had fun.
Oh, you went to Great Wolf. That's right. I went to Great Wolf within a week difference.
A different one, though.
Yeah, I went to the one in Seattle. You went to the one in Ohio. Side. Yeah.
So there's Sandusky, Ohio, which is 30 minutes from my house, has 5 indoor water parks, and Cedar Point.
Right.
And that's basically all that town is.
Did you say Sandusky, Ohio?
Yeah. America's
is there a
roller coast
there you should be concerned about?
No, actually, that's a different state altogether.
Yeah.
That's Pennsylvania. What else did I do? I cleaned my house. I did a bunch of boring things. I think I may have decided to write another book, which...
What's it on?
Yeah.
So remember when you're little, and did you ever read the Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Who didn't? I love those things.
Like
20.
If you want to explore this cave, go to page 49.
Yep.
But if you want to go over the hill into the dark woods, go to page 120 or whatever.
I had so many bookmarks in those things because I was like, I screwed
wanted
myself
to
up.
read
I
all
need
the
to go back.
chains.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I totally read the whole book.
Very nice.
Time. So my idea is to create a enterprise tabletop.
Oh.
Like that.
You mean kind of like what we did with Purple Squad Sec, but a choose your own adventure book.
Gave me the idea.
Minus the dice, which I love. I loved the dice idea, but the choose your own adventure thing would be great.
Yeah, so minus the dice, but choose your own adventure. The first one I was going to focus on was healthcare, and try and do like a HIPAA type spin on a choose your own adventure tabletop.
So you're walking down the hallway one day and a HIPAA auditor attacks you with his big giant teeth. Oh wait, no, that's
do you smack them with the chart? Or
yeah. Not a hippo.
Do you run into the
HIPAA.
OR?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's just like an idea I had that I couldn't stop thinking about. So I figured I should at least try it.
That's great. You could do all kinds of industries: finance, healthcare, SCADA.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Small business.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's fantastic. Whole series of books.
Yeah. So it turns out writing those is a little difficult though.
Oh.
So I found an online writing/decision tree website that will help you keep track of all of your little pieces and parts and then put it together for you.
Yeah.
So hopefully it actually comes out. I don't know. We'll see.
That would be fun. Yeah. Who's going to write your forward?
You this time, obviously.
Yes.
So.
Fantastic.
You asked me first, so.
Damn right. All right. Yeah. So, Mr. Boettcher, what did you do for holiday season?
Burnt down a data center.
What?
No, I didn't do anything.
Oh, you didn't do anything?
No.
Oh, okay. Mr. Gough, don't get used to the Mr. Gough, by the way. I'm just saying.
You stayed home and took care of the kids. You had to have done something. Harass them, give them chores.
I helped. I helped. Yeah, I built some hacker boxes. So does that count?
What kind of hacker boxes?
Well, I helped. I facilitated the learning of hacker boxes technology,
nice.
which is a good thing for kids, by the way. If anybody out there has kids, I recommend it. You get a package every, or your kid gets a package every month, and they get to build something with it.
Is that like the Adafruit thing? Adafruit does something very similar to that. I got my Secret Santa something from Adafruit this year, so
it was like that.
Yeah,
I've had stuff for my kids that's science and tech ish, like related. That's
it's more of a maker box. I would probably describe it more as a maker box. You get these tools, you learn about stuff, you solder it together, you program it, and boom, you got something that you
Back in my day, we got those kits at Radio Shack, and we assembled them which we called basically phone freaking kits. You buy the little blue box, you get the little book, you get all the parts, and you do your phone freaking.
What's Radio Shack?
Like I said, back in my day,
we didn't have transistors. We had to use vacuum tubes. We liked it. Yeah.
I remember my dad having one of those rings where he used to degauss the tubes in order to get everything all realigned.
Oh, gods. Wow. All right.
Those vacuum tubes went out quite often, kind of like incandescent light bulbs.
Yep.
So you had to crawl around the computer and change them out all the time.
I'm sorry, crawl around inside the computer.
Yes.
Okay, y'all are dating yourselves because
change out the
you used to have to line the heads on hard drives back in the day too, and they were about 10 inches, 12 inches in diameter.
Were you there when Moses parted the Red Sea and you escaped?
I watched people do it. I wasn't old enough to actually do that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Might have been, but I don't know. I was pretty young.
That's what they had child labor for. Go in there and align the heads, kid. I don't want to lose a finger. Yeah, you've got 10 good ones. They'll grow back.
Man, 5 gigs was a big box, but yet that big around, the size of her drawer of a desk.
Good Lord. All right. Well, what did you do, Mr. Gough?
Sorry.
What did you do for the holidays?
Worked. I'm an incident response, so I had to do the detection and response while Boettcher was out making hacker boxes. I watched email and watch the slow trickle in of potential
for 3 hours a day,
pretty much, because that's about how busy the people were. There were like 3 cars in a parking lot. It was pretty slow.
Nice,
fortunately, and did some chores, blew some fall leaves into a pile that I finished picking up here this last weekend. So
very nice.
Spring cleaning in the winter because it was like 65 degrees before it got stupid frozen cold here.
Oh, yeah. It snowed here the snow came on Saturday, so we actually had a white Christmas, which was really nice. So, it doesn't happen a lot. So,
let's get on with it.
Yes,
put out my stand-up desk. That's the other big accomplishment.
Oh, right.
Nice.
Is it a Vera desk or is it like a proper standing desk?
Proper standing desk with a little button that makes the whole desk go up and down, so you don't have this clickety click, and you get your whole desk space go up, go down. It's awesome. So far, it's never gone down. I keep it up all the time.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's get on to this. We got a few things for news. I mean, if you are under a rock, Spectre and Meltdown happened and is still happening. As a matter of fact, I just saw Ubuntu put out the patches for it today. Within a few hours, I got the security list for that. We'll get to the school district thing, but how bad is Spectre and Meltdown? I mean, a couple of people at my work said it's probably the worst vulnerability of the decade.
No? You
think there was something worse? Or are you hoping that something will come in the next 2 years?
That Shell Shock was a pretty bad one.
I would say it was until this came. And the only reason I'm saying that is Shell Shock only affected Bash. Am I right? It didn't really affect like Windows and... I mean,
no, but most of the internet.
Probably the furthest reaching.
Linux.
It was the furthest reaching?
Yeah, this one probably affects many more.
Yeah.
Because all these architectures going way back, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So did Shell Shock as well. I think that the response was pretty good, right? The cloud infrastructure is being patched as we speak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so the way it happened to us was we found about 6 months ago, people were noticing changes being added to the Linux kernel. Back in November, Amazon did a big reboot, which people at my office and myself included surmised that it was to fix this issue in their hypervisors. Because if you didn't reboot your own hypervisors, they were going to force reboot everything.
So you knew about this beforehand?
Well,
It was public.
Amazon did send out a thing to all its customers saying that they were going to reboot everything in their environment. It doesn't happen a lot, but anytime there's a Zen embargo, they've had this before. If you don't reboot yourself, they'll reboot you. And they ended up doing a full reboot of all their hypervisors back in like November timeframe, which we assumed at our office that was what had happened. So there are a lot of organizations that are unhappy with the way it was disclosed. Many operating systems like OpenBSD, for instance, didn't get any kind of notification about the vulnerability. They didn't get the opportunity to patch their own kernels. So many OSs were left out in the water and only found out after all of the news hit the fan in this case. So, there are some people who are very unhappy about how some of it was disclosed.
And why was it disclosed early? Somebody just leak it that knew from one of the OS vendors or from Intel or somebody like that?
There were some blog posts back in September talking about changes in the kernel that had happened that had surmised that it was some kind of vulnerability in the kernel that was affecting it. They didn't realize it was a processor thing.
Yeah.
So
it kind of leaked out inadvertently.
It usually does. Some people won't, respect the embargo, which for good or ill. Others,
gossip.
There's gossip. People, over beers. Hey, guess what? Whatever. So you get that all the time. Did you? So Miss Amanda works in the services industry. How did that affect your customers, or were they calling you to find out how they were not screwed or completely screwed?
No.
Oh, that's good.
We sent out a notice that was just like a couple quotes from the Spectre webpage that they had, or meltdown page, whatever it was called.
Yeah.
And then that mixed with like links of where to get OS patches and that they should be testing them first, and what all it affects and what you have to have. The fact that nobody has seen that exploit in the wild yet. So we're going back and forth actually, and because we're creating these templates for these more frequent alert things that we want to send out. And we had a big discussion around what we should call it. Should it be critical because it's so far reaching, or the fact that you already have to, at the time, you thought you'd already had to be on the box to, exploit it. So we just went with important. This is an important notice. Yeah, not.
Well, it depends on the vulnerability, right? Spectre, from what I understood, Spectre was you could actually activate it using JavaScript in a browser, and it would reveal browser cache, or it would leak browser cache out. So it's information disclosure. So it depends on what you have in your cache at the time, whether that be passwords or what have you. There and Meltdown was something entirely different, and I want to understand what speculative something is. There's a whole big word about this. But I don't know enough about that to talk about it intelligently.
As of a couple days ago, I know a guy from a major Fortune 500 IDS type network security person.
How delightfully vague.
So, yeah. or a gal. And they said they have not captured it being exploited in the wild as of 2 days ago. So, yeah, they've been looking.
Yes.
They've been waiting. So,
well, I know of a person or persons in the Fortune 800 type place that has mentioned that certain countries, certain organizations are actually looking at weaponizing some of these things, because if a lot of organizations are not going to be able to patch this immediately. If you have multiple endpoints, you can't just shut everything down necessarily. If you're using AWS, I would say them doing a reboot of their entire hypervisor fixes about 80% of your problem. There's still vulnerabilities running around for that. When you get your patches for your OS, you should still definitely patch your kernel and do the reboots. But if you have to wait and do testing and stuff, the fact that they did change and they did do those updates and back in November probably will cover some of you.
So the advice is probably just treat this as a normal patch. Don't hair on fire.
Yeah, I wouldn't shell shock it where you're like, oh no, we got to patch something now, because as we've seen, Microsoft put out some patches.
I'm vindicated. You said don't shell shock it.
Yeah, don't shell shock it. Or heart bleed it. Don't heart bleed it where it's got to go out immediately, because Microsoft did issue some patches that were bricking some AMD boxes. So you definitely want to be testing, even if they've tested to run it in your regular patch cycle. You can also add some browser protections. Safari actually updated yesterday to Security Update 2. I believe they added some Safari protections. If you're running Chrome, you can also add some security protections in there. You can do some Google searching to find the site isolation flags for that. Working on them whisker words. And when you... I'm just going to switch whisker words out. I'm going to switch so for and. So, I mean, so that's where you gotta understand the vulnerabilities and figure out what works for your organization. I mean, patching immediately may work and it may brick your systems. You may have users that can't do anything, and then you've lost time there. So,
has anybody read the validity of the 30% performance hit? Was that a reality? Was that just something maybe somebody saw in initial testing, but
it's only specific workloads. We have been testing at my office. We've had a few data points, but we've noticed about a 5% increase in load. And, if you've got something that does take 30% and you're getting a 30% hit and you work on, say, Azure or AWS, that could be real cost for your company, because what CPU you were using now, you're using 1.3 CPUs instead of just one before. So that could
be a big difference,
a big price difference. So yes, think about that. Depending on what you're using that for. I don't know of anything that I've seen or heard that has taken that big a hit. Maybe, I don't know. I've heard maybe some of the cryptocurrencies like Monero takes quite a bit of processor power now. It's been an increase. I don't crunch that stuff myself, and I've only seen it in passing on Twitter. So your mileage may vary if you're using, processors to crunch your Monero or whatever the hell it is, cryptocurrency out there. So
yeah, I think 5% is definitely reality right now.
And I actually saw a couple articles from Google saying that they had additional code that they were adding that could be added to the kernel that would drop it to like 1.5%. A loss of performance, so 1.5% across the board. Again, don't quote me on that, but that's I would assume that's what they're talking about for to fix this issue. So, and then Microsoft had a blog post today that I reposted on Twitter saying that they haven't noticed any degradation from their patches. So whatever they did to fix it is there. So. Hopefully they've had enough time to, poke around and optimize the kernel. Maybe they did some kernel optimization that actually offset some of the vulnerabilities. So, all right. Next thing, you did find it. Okay, good. Tripwire.com, state of security. Yes, I read this. This is sad. So there's a school district that was affected by was it ransomware or is it just malware?
Not ransomware.
Malware. Okay, malware. So
imitate rootkit.
Imitate.
Trojan, whatever.
No, not a rootkit, right? Just a regular old Trojan.
Just regular old Trojan. Okay, so the Rockingham County School District in North Carolina, and I looked up where Rockingham County is. It's like north central North Carolina. So it's not in what I would consider to be like an affluent part of the country. Am I right?
I guess you could say that, but I don't know. I don't think it matters at this point if they were a really rich school district or not. I think the thing is that
They have 316K. They got some money.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
they got to have.
So the story is they got hit with this Emotet Trojan that spread through their network.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so they basically had to pay a consultant $314,000 to clean it up. And to rebuild their servers.
A dozen servers, like more than a dozen servers.
20 servers.
20 servers.
14,000.
Yeah, somebody's return on investment is way off here.
But it says
I love seeing quotes like that. I always just think, man, I could have done it for at least half that.
Yeah.
Well, it basically says in the article they had to approve a 12-month, $314,000 service contract with a technology firm to come in and clean them up. 12 servers, 3,000 client systems, and it would take them, I guess, about a month to do that.
Well, it was 12 servers and it looks like 3,000 endpoints. So 314,000, that's not bad. I mean,
they're rebuilding everything. There's a flaw here. If you got infected and your reaction is just to rebuild, what are they doing to figure out where it came from? Now, there was mention in the article about they got a fake invoice or whatever. But 314,000, it will take me on a bad day 15 minutes to clean Emotet off of a desktop or a server, a Windows box.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty easy to do, really. It's not complicated. Shouldn't the big chunk of that money be spent in something a little more detective, preventive, EDR? I don't know.
I mean, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe there's additional bits.
Depending on how far-reaching it is, just say you have to start all over. Create a new domain from scratch, re-image all 3,000 endpoints.
Yeah.
One, that's going to take a shit ton of time.
It says in the article, even so, Rockingham will need to also pay for the replacement of teacher devices affected by the malware. Superintendent says that the amount could be as much as $834,000.
Oh, goodness.
Additional?
Yeah,
I think somebody's being taken to the cleaners.
Yeah.
Somebody needs some education.
Almost $1 million?
I think the point of this is that
it's a lot of iPhones.
I don't know if they have the right people on staff to say, hey, it really doesn't cost that much. We need to hire somebody like Brian Brake to come in here and clean this up, or hire somebody as a consultant to tell us if we're getting our money's worth here, or if we're better off doing something else. That's why I like the idea of the CISO for hire.
Right.
Or the temp CISO.
Right.
You can hire an expert to come in and say, all right,
that's bullshit.
Let me tell you if you're getting taken to the cleaners or what we need to do, what the best thing to do in my experience is, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Maybe they could save the school district some money.
Well, that we talked about this in the Slack too. It was, I said, well, wouldn't it have been nice if the state had some kind of, cyber
response team, or
cyber
whatever,
response hotline or email or something that administrators could email and go, hey, we've got issues, we've been hacked, we need some assistance with this, so they could come in. And the funny thing is, if they're actually doing any kind of bidding on this is the cheapest bid, which means there were other companies out there probably charging them far, far more. So these companies are, cashing in on a tragedy.
Not necessarily, because there are levels. The state has levels, right? They have a state store. Here in Texas, we have DIR,
GSA or something.
Research, right? So they have a TSA or whatever that, depending on the level or the type of service, you can charge these kinds of rates.
Oh,
so there's a good chance that may have fallen into that area. So we can't rule that out.
So $800 hammers
right.
Yeah.
So this may already be kind of a pre-approved kind of scenario, approved vendor. But like in Texas, we have DIR. That group, the University of Texas, if something like this happened to them, could reach out to DIR and say, can you give us some advice? And then they could take a more proactive, approach to say, okay, let's not overreact here. Let's spend this money to a more better use than re-imaging the entire environment.
It appears at this point that they didn't do that, and they acted on their own. They didn't seek advice of experts aside from the company that they hired to come in and clean up this malware. Now, Michael and I have seen Emotet before many times in our environment, and we found out that it had a couple of different modes of persistence, probably some kit that the hackers can build, and they have a bunch of settings. So persistence can be like a scheduled task, service, a run key, and a startup folder. And I've read also some articles, and they all said the same thing, like a startup folder was one of them, a run key was another. To clean it up, what you would have to do is, for Emotet, it's not too hard. It's to kill the executable, and there isn't a second executable that runs to check the first executable that starts the original executable, right? It's just a single program that's running or process. You kill that and delete the persistence, and you're done. So you could actually script that or push out a program to actually kill the executable and get rid of the persistence.
So this malware is just a stepping stone to other bad malware, right?
No, this is technically the bad stuff. Now, the stepping stone was the dropper that was evidently downloaded through a phishing email.
Yeah.
Right. Something to that effect.
And
in
what
one
is
of the articles, they said that the link contained the malware. I've never seen a link contain malware, but they probably downloaded a file, like a document or a fake resume or invoice, something like that, which actually contained the script, which could be PowerShell, it could be VB script or whatever, to download the executable, which is the Emotet. It usually puts it in temp, and then moves it to app data, roaming, something like that, where it's kicked off through a run key, or it's placed in the startup folder as a link file, a fake link file, things like that.
Task in this case for the Emotet.
Yeah, this case is probably a scheduled task. I don't know. You delete the task, kill the executable, and that's it.
So what's Emotet for? What do you do with it? Is it a baking Trojan? Is it? It
is. On a lot of the articles I've read is a banking Trojan, but it has all kinds of capabilities. It's capable of ransoming the box. It's capable of running whatever commands the attackers want to run.
Right.
It reports to command and control. It gives the hackers a rundown of what the system is. So it'll tell them what things are running on the system, what things are installed on the system, whether it's connected to a domain, and it uses an encrypted channel to communicate to the attackers so that it cannot be sniffed on the wire. Now, the way that a network security appliance would detect it was that they have the same certificate to communicate on an encrypted fashion. It has to have a certificate, right, and pass it. And usually those are the same and they're detectable. And that's how intrusion detection systems will get this and sniff it out. And they probably didn't have a IPS running in their environment also, because that would have prevented this as well.
Right.
When it sees that certificate, it says, you ain't communicating, and it doesn't communicate from that point on.
I think the moral here is this is an awful lot of money for a public institution to pay for something where it seems that the end result is reimaging, which those of us in incident response would say it's a great thing to do on day-to-day operations, but if you get nailed with something big, just reimaging the environment isn't probably the best approach, because if you go, you're going to spend this every time you get hit with something big. So stop, think, advice to all these agencies and or companies that think that just reimaging the environment is the best idea. You might want to get a true security person's opinion here and bring them in to give you another perspective than an IT perspective that just says, oh, we reimage everything, right? Because we've all said it. I've said it to lots of people. Hey, the only way you can be certain is to reimage everything. Right. And maybe this is an opportunity to clean the environment and start over. And the article did not say, and we bought a bunch of other stuff along with it. So there's pieces missing, but clearly either the article should say, and they employed a Mandiant or local, North Carolina, Raleigh type security firm to help us do this correctly, is really the message here. Just throwing a bunch of money to reimage, where the article said, is like, whoa, wait, what? How much?
Yeah, there's a lot more. It's not saying. The $314,000 was probably for a 1-year deal, where these people help protect them for the entire year, get them set up with some more security, right? They put some more cyber in their environment, things like that.
Yeah. Well, we're assuming that was all they found during their initial. They might have found Emotet or whatever initially, but they're having to. It was so effective that it managed to infect like 20 servers and 3,000 endpoints. So it was very effective at moving laterally in the environment. So that lends itself to improper network setup. I would assume a flat network.
My exact
There's
point.
a lot of red flags.
SMB, real easy to take advantage of. If you're wide open, boom, your entire environment's going to be nailed. So yeah, that's where you should be spending some of that money is, hey, how did this spread everywhere? SMB shares probably.
Yep.
Let's turn that off when we re-image these machines. Are they getting a hardened image that will lock some of this stuff down so this doesn't happen again?
Yep.
That's the kind of points that I think need to be visited in these kinds of
No
cases.
personal information stolen, no data.
So yeah, I thought I had that turned off, but yeah, I actually went to the local news website WFMY to try to find out more information.
That likes to autoplay videos, I'm guessing.
Hate autoplay.
That's like my biggest pet peeve.
Is there a plugin for that? No,
I had
autoplay?
one that blocked it, but apparently it's getting around my HTML5 block. So WFMY
They
can
want people to use video, to use more data, so that you buy more data. That whole
stupid
WFMY can go bite my shiny metal ass. So, anywho, yeah. So I mean,
had to get that explicit rating.
No, Miss Amanda beat me to that by about 10 minutes with her S word over there.
What?
Oh, you said the S word, ma'am. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, you did.
That's like PG.
Oh, my bad. Well, wait.
That's not explicit.
All right. Well, I won't say bite my shiny metal ass again.
I could say a lot worse.
No. How about we don't? How about we don't?
Nobody's questioning you there.
All right. Well, I never got to tell people what I did over the holiday, and I actually
I was going to ask you, and then you changed subjects.
Nobody cares, I know. No, I actually did quite a bit security-wise because we didn't go anywhere. We went to Great Wolf the weekend before Ms. Berlin did. We actually got back Christmas Eve, I think. We came back Christmas Eve from to our house here at the world headquarters. And, I got to work on building out my lab because it's something I wanted to do for a while. I have this big fancy server right there. I'm pointing, but you can't see it. And use your theater of the mind.
It's above the pile of trash.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, actually, I've got a Mac Mini,
Giant
which I also
ball.
Yeah, I have a Mac Mini and I have another Dell server, so I've got enough space to actually create several VMs. So I can create like 8 or 9 using VMware. I'm not trying to do Zen or anything weird like that because the barrier to entry for me has to be fairly low because I'm me. So I set up my lab. I got everything running. I have it on a separate Wi-Fi network. Nothing can connect to it. It's on a 192 network. It's separate from my work stuff. My work laptop, actually, I put on a separate network because I was worried about some of the technology, the endpoint technology that's running on it, because I understand that it now looks out at assets on your network. And I was like, maybe I don't want my endpoint security doing that. So I isolated it on its own network interface. Which means I now can't print because that's on the home interface, but it's neither here nor there. I also
set up a dual home print server.
Where are you going with this, man?
I don't print. Well, that's what I was doing. But one of the other things I wanted to learn how to do was not use Kali, which everyone is like, oh, you use Kali or use back office or whatever, what it was back in the day. And, I'd heard a lot about, Dave Kennedy's pen test framework. So I thought, well, I'll give that a try. So I downloaded it and I was starting to play with it. So I actually have a demo.
Oh,
I know. I'm sharing my screen. I'm going to start recording. I know.
How are you going to add this to the podcast?
I'm not. Some people are going to have to.
Sorry, guys.
It's theater of the mind. So what I've got up here is a Debian 9.3 latest build of Debian, and the setup on this is like super simple. So you just go in once you're on your desktop, which I'm using XFCE because I don't like Unity or GNOME or KDE because they're far too bloated. So I have XFCE and I have the terminal. So you git clone. You go to his website on GitHub, which is github.com/trustedsec/ptf.git. You clone it onto your desktop, into your environment. And once you do that, you The only requirement is he wants to make sure that your base install path is correct. So once you go into the Git repo on your local box, there's a config file in the config directory called config, just config, and you open it and there's a base install path, and you can change that to wherever you want to load this to. And one of the requirements for me to set these up was to not run as root. So, I've got sudo set up on here. I want to install all the tools that I need, but I don't want to run as root, because Kali's like, oh, you just run as root and you have a lame ass password, and it's all safe and everything. But when you're on it, a lot of people I've been talking to is when you're on engagements, you don't want to run like that, because you're running all kinds of stuff on your Kali box, and you don't want to portray being insecure or getting owned yourself while you're on the environment. So I set mine up to run in opt/pentest. So everything is going to get installed in opt/pentest. And once you stop and you save that, you can start up PTF, which is fairly simple. You just go to the ptf.git, where your local Git repo is. I type in sudo ptf, asks me for my password. It asks me, not PFT, PTF, my bad. I'm working on this, okay? So, and there you go. And then it comes up, it tells you the version, tells you what the code name is. It says a project by Trusted Sec, written by Dave Kennedy, Relic, at Hacking Dave on Twitter. So, send him some love if you want. So it tells you the tool count that's available. So there's 220 tools in the environment. One of the first things you do, and it brings you to a very Metasploit looking command line. So you have PTF with a greater than sign, and you can type ? And it tells you all the tools that you need. So you can do show modules. You can show a specific module. You can search for a specific name. So if you wanted to search for Nmap, you can search for Nmap, and it comes up fairly quickly. It's a lot quicker than Metasploit. Where
that's really quick.
Even with the database, you have to wait for the results. So let's say you wanted to install Nmap. You just go in, copy, you use, and in this case, it's under modules, vulnerability-analysis Nmap. So you go copy that. Now, I've already installed it, but what happens, you go in, you go show options, and it will show you everything that's on there, including a module description. So for the Nmap, it says this module will install or update Nmap. And it will also install NCAT, which is Fyodor's version of Netcat, which is great because base Netcat does not have access to things like SSH or using SSL. So when you're making your tunnels going back from boxes that you've ran shell on, NCAT does allow for SSL to be used, which if you're exfilling data out on a project or something, the last thing you want to do is open a shell out and have it unencrypted, because that can actually be sniffed from what I gathered. So the important thing is this is extremely extensible. You can go in and you go into the modules section and you can look by various categories: AV-bypass, code-audit, exploitation, intelligence gathering. If you go into each of those, there are different Python scripts that you can use to
PowerShell.
There's a PowerShell section all about this. Yeah. Also post-exploitation. There's also a web shell directory. So one of the ones I looked up was called Weavely, which if you just look at the Python config file for that, you can actually create this. This reminded me a lot of anybody's ever used OpenBSD, the ports system that they have there, where they have a config file. So each one of these .py scripts is a collection of variables used to build your script, or to build your application. So you have author, Dave Kennedy, description, this module will install or update Weavely, a web shell. Install type, Git, SVN, file download, etc. So you have install_type. There's a GitHub for it. So it says Git. Location of the file. So it shows the GitHub repo, github.com/epina, EPINNA-Weavely3. To ask you where you want to install it to. So the install location is Weavely. So the initial variable that I gave, op/pentest/, and then it would go into Weavely. And for dependencies for Debian or Fedora, they're the same. So if Debian had a different command for installing whatever it was you got, let's say you use wget for Debian, you might use curl for Fedora, there'd be different ways to download that file. There's also commands to run afterwards. So if you have, let's say you're running cool, CEWL, which is the word list generator, or you need something that requires a word list. The after command would be like, once you've installed this, copy this file into this directory, or you need to run this to register the application, that kind of thing. There's also an additional launcher, I would assume, for creating a custom launch command or arguments. In this case, if you want to run it with default arguments of like -v for nmap in this case. So once you do that, you can go in. I've got nmap here. You just type run, and what it will do is it will go in, look for various dependencies. It'll download. It'll run apt-get, apt-update. It'll look for everything necessary to install. It goes into the SVN. I'm actually downloading the latest version of nmap in this case and compiling it from source. It's really nice. I enjoy it. I'm running the nightly Metasploit as well. I downloaded some Samba tools because I was running a vulnerable VM. So once that's done, you've got the latest nightly build of nmap running on your Debian box. So much nicer than the package version, which you would find on whatever repos are available for Debian or Ubuntu. So the other thing I've been learning how to do is taking better notes. So I wanted to get a decent app. So I found one called Cherry Tree. That actually I discovered that through Kali, but I actually find that it's more feature rich than the other ones like Keep Note or ZimWiki. I've tried using TiddlyWiki, and I've just not been a fan of those either. And so, those seems to work really well. The nodes on it are nice. You can make a test node, and then you can make sub nodes underneath it. So I was creating, different ones here. Like I was running through the Keyoptrix vulnerable VM. So I, broke down, the reports by nmap or nbt and running various commands and putting the output of those in there. I'm trying to keep track of, pieces of code that I use for vulnerabilities. But yeah, I that's some of the stuff that I've been working on. I'd actually like to incorporate more of this into the show, where we have kind of walkthroughs of various tools or various vulnerable VMs to give you ideas on how to walk through and work with these vulnerabilities. So that's something I have been working on so far.
Well, I'm glad you're wanting to take better notes and learning that. I would just like to point out that for whatever you've been talking about in the last 10 minutes is not in the show notes. Just saying.
No, I got the PTF down there at the bottom. Pen test framework right there. Bit of technical discussion. That's where I've got it right there. The bottom of the first. You bastard.
Oh, the bottom. Okay, I didn't know we were there.
We're skipping around.
We are skipping around a little bit, yes. But I thought we might end on that note since we're at 50 minutes. Talk about some of the upcoming stuff that we have in the next 3 months. I know Mr. Gough has some trainings coming up. BrakeSec has some trainings coming up that I would like to discuss. And I also wanted to put a job posting bit on there, for some jobs. So I'm going to let Amanda talk about her class that we're going to have starting in very soon.
Yeah, so this went from a blog post to a talk to a training.
You sound so excited.
And I just keep on adding more and more onto it. So it's a spin-off of the shorter training that I did for O'Reilly. I'm just adding more onto it, and I have a lot more walkthroughs and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's the taking the kill chain and mapping defenses and monitoring and going through some of the actual attacks for blue team people that don't know how to actually perform the attacks in a smallish lab.
Okay.
So it's like domain controller, endpoint, Calibox, snort, and going through some configurations on it and setting up a domain controller, doing some Windows stuff, doing some recon, some OSINT. It's like all around things that most people should be worried about.
Cool. Very nice. So we're going to start that training as part of the Breaking Down Security training series, like we did last year with Tyler Hudak and Matt Domko, and teaching various things on a weekly basis, one a night. So when do you want to start that?
So I think I'll probably start the 5th of February. So it's the first Monday in February.
Okay.
And it should last for 4 Monday nights at an hour or so a piece.
Okay. Excellent.
Yep.
All right. So that's 4 hours of killing the cyber kill chain, or killing the cyber kill chain.
And I'll have things that people need to download and do before they hop on. But it's just like, make sure you have this OS and a VM and set up.
Right.
And then we'll walk through like more advanced setup after that. But.
All right. So yeah, we'll have some pricing out for that. One of the things we learned last year is that Patreon sucks for trying to sign people up for classes, because they sign up to a certain level and then some people forget to turn off the $25 or $50 they were using for that, and then they get charged again. So I feel bad, and I actually refunded some people who got charged again in December for the November class. So what we're going to do is we're going to use straight up PayPal. So we'll have a paypal.me link for Breaking Down Security training, and what you'll do is you'll just send money to that, and that will be your ticket to get in. You'll just need to supply an email address and what have you. It doesn't cost you anything with the paypal.me, so it'll be just like you're sending money to the BrakeSec PayPal. We still have the Patreon, so I mean, if you still want to donate to that, you can for however long we're gonna. However long we decide to have that. So one of the other ones we have we're still talking, but we've got Matt Miller wanting to do a more advanced reverse engineering course for us. Matt Miller we had on last year. He teaches at University of Nebraska at Kearney, which is up in Nebraska.
The Nebraska way.
Nebraska, right. So he wants to do some more reverse engineering courses for us. Some of the stuff that I think probably teaches with his own kids there at the university, but we'd love to have him. We're going to be solidifying that. So if you are interested in that, please send us an email letting us know you are interested in doing that, so we have an idea of what kind of head count. Mr. Gough, you are going to be teaching some more incident response and malware detection stuff then, yes?
I am. I've got a couple classes coming up here in the near future. We've got the Austin ISSA chapter is doing a one-day event downtown at the new location at UT. Date to be announced, so watch the austinissa.org website for that detail. But it'll be a one-day training. It'll be around logging, configuration, preparing for incident response kind of stuff. And then Houston, April 3rd, as part of HoustekCon's conference, there's one-day training, preparing and responding to an endpoint incident, what to configure and what to look for. And then in Tulsa, Beachside, Oklahoma, so one of our former Austinites is up there helping out with that one. Mm-hmm. We'll have a 2-day training, introduction and responding to endpoint incident, malware discovery, what to configure and what to look for. So definitely some upcoming trainings that will obviously include LogMD as well.
Cool. So I'm also getting into the training gig. Not only is Breaking Down Security doing training, but I'm going to be teaching, fingers crossed, a mentor course in Seattle. If you are local to Seattle, Bellevue, Redmond area, for those of you who are not in the Seattle area, I apologize, but there are plenty of mentor classes out there. If you're looking for one, you can just go on SAN's website. I'm going to be teaching 7 weeks of Security 504 in the evenings, starting March 1st for 7 weeks. I'm still looking for a venue. I do have kind of a handshake agreement with an organization up here that is looking at hosting, but I haven't gotten a yes or no yet. So if you are interested in taking 504, we can give you a discount on that. People ask me, it's like, well, why do we want to do the mentor class? And I was like, well, I went to 504 in July in San Diego, and more than half the class at some point was not in the class because they got called away to work. And I do CSEC East up here, and I was like, you guys should, if you can't take my 504 course, there's going to be one a couple weeks later that's a week long. And they're like, yeah, I can't do that because I'd get called out and it's a waste of money because I'd be gone for a whole day because of some incident response. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's a good reason why you would want to do a mentor course, because you're not likely to get pulled away at any point in the 3 hours that I'm going to be teaching you versus, you having to take the entire week off, which isn't necessarily feasible for a lot of folks. So if you are in the Seattle area and you do want to take the incident handling course, please, you can email me, bds.podcast@gmail.com, or you can check the link in the show notes. And, I can have a maximum of 12 people in my class. So it will be going fast if you want to do that. So last thing, we have some job postings. So if you're looking for a job, our Slack channel, we do have a job board. So if you want to join us on that, you can. We have a bunch of other tracks. Sorry?
We're hiring?
Well, we, as in the InfoSec industry, are always hiring.
Yeah. I heard there's 1 million jobs in InfoSec now.
Well,
like
filled or not filled?
Not filled. Unfilled.
I'm going to start collecting them.
You're going to collect jobs?
Yeah. I'm just going to be employed at 4 places at once.
Well, yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I mean, you can moonlight. People moonlight all the time. Gough moonlights. Boettcher moonlights. Boettcher's a filthy developer, and he still has a day job. So, So a couple of job postings that were in our Slack job board just recently. There's a senior manager of vulnerability management at Amazon in Herndon, Virginia, of all places. So if you are in the Virginia area, or, bigger companies may offer relocation if you need to have that happen. You can check that out in our Slack site. You may have to log in if you haven't. Please DM us or email us and get access to that. Or you can just go look on Amazon. They probably will have that available as well. Michael Fordrain, he lives here in the Bellevue, Washington area. He works for a mobile phone company, and he has several positions on his team. So if you are interested in talking to him, he's on Twitter. You can go to M4, F-O-U-R, Drain, D-R-A-I-N-E. It's also in our show notes, or you can join us on Slack. He's in Slack there. He actually said, it'd be helpful if you contacted him so that you could get some idea of what the jobs are like before he does that. So
all these are in Slack, right?
Yes, all of these are in Slack, but
we have a job channel.
We have a job channel. We also have a career advice channel. So if you're wanting somebody to look at your resume before you submit for jobs, we also have people who will look at resumes as well. So,
and enough of the Seattle jobs. I posted one from the local scenario here. James Avery is looking for an information security manager in Austin, Texas. Come on down to Austin.
Who's James Avery?
Like bling bling. You can work for James Avery.
Who's James Avery?
Jewelry company of some sort, high-end jewelry here in town.
I thought it was like
I thought it was a person.
I thought it was like Jethro Tull or something. I thought it was
I thought it was furniture. Shows you how much jewelry I buy.
Yeah. Okay. So
but the
James
wife and Boettcher informed me it's jewelry, so we know where their minds are at.
A bespoke jewelry company is looking for an information security manager. So there you go.
Yeah, shout out to Brian Engel. He made us aware that this was available. So
Brian Engel. We've had him on the show. He's a good dude. So, all right. Well, quickly, how would people get a hold of everybody on the show? We're going to start with our newest person, Mr. Gough. How would we get a hold of you if they wanted to talk to you about things?
You can get a hold of me at Hack a Hurricane on the Twitters, and you can also get a hold of me at Malware Archaeology, preferably LogMD, so Michael at IMF Security or Michael at Malware Archaeology, and that's how you can get a hold of me.
Okay. So Mr. Gough won't be on this show all the time. He and Mr. Boettcher are going to be on their own show, and that show is going to be once a month, right?
We'll start out with once a month. We'll have some fillers. There's a couple topics that'll probably be multiple shows, so we'll post multiple in that particular month on that subject. Okay. And then as we, build up our repertoire and get better at it, we'll then increase the quantities of shows, and maybe we'll do 30 a month, one a day.
Or maybe after 3 months, we might just say, enough of this.
Yes,
enough of this.
Who knows?
Right. The idea here is I've been looking for a a podcast in this space, and it really doesn't exist. There's a lot of training in the incident response area. I don't want to call it DFIR because we'll talk about that in the first show, what this podcast will cover. And I think we can, because we're in the trench, defenders and responders and incident response people, dealt with breaches, tools, things that work, things that don't work, preparation, and those sort of things. Those aren't really covered very well, and so we'll have an opportunity to cover that in detail. And we'll have guests on, like a Dave Cowan with forensic stuff, and Tyler Hudak, and people like that, where we'll talk specifically about a subject in that space. But mostly we're going to be the detection and response, malware analysis, malware discovery, basic malware analysis. We're not going to get an advanced analysis or forensics. That's not our sweet spot. Yep. And that's what we'll cover.
Cool. Miss Berlin, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted to discuss?
They can't. My Twitter's all full.
Oh, wow. You get 10,000 followers. You're kind of a big thing.
I just cut them off there. I stopped using it. That was like my goal.
Oh, wow.
Was to reach 10K and then just disappear.
Bucket list, huh?
Yeah. No, it's at InfoSyster, INFOSYSTIR on Twitter or Slack.
Very nice. All right. So, Mr. Boettcher, you're going to be pulling double duty. How are you going to handle breaking security and BDIR? Or are you going to, just quit us and go hang out with Mr. Gough all the time?
Oh, we don't do that.
Yeah.
It's once a month. It's not all the time. I got to work with him all the time.
Oh. Well, I used to work with him all the time until I moved, so...
See what you did? That means I got to move. I do have a property in Minnesota, so I suppose it's possible that he may scare me away as well.
Yeah.
Hit me up on the DM. Right, I'm on Twitter.
Oh wow!
At Boettcher Coned.
He keeps it
Slide
real.
Right into them DMs.
He keeps it hip with the kids these days. Hit him up on the DMs. So
yes.
Yeah, okay. And you're never on our Slack, so it doesn't matter to mention that. And so, nah.
We are, but we're not Slack junkies on it 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Dude, seriously, I use it for threat intelligence. I'm like pumping stuff to my people at work, and they're like, how are you finding this stuff? And I'm like, I'm following half a dozen people in my Slack channel that are, I have my minions out there surfing the inner tubes looking for things. So
I'm on it often. I just don't post often.
Oh, that's right.
There's almost 1,000 people on that Slack channel. It is.
We need to kick some of them off.
Yeah, we need to, sink the Titanic.
BR dude.
Man, that guy just.
Yep. Yeah. He's special. We got a couple moderators. So, we also have, speaking of the Slack, we have a book club. Dave Sybuck is looking for people to give input on the next book. Books like Countdown to Zero Day by Kim Zetter, the Threat Modeling book by Adam Shostak. We have a couple of other ones that he's got in there. The Peter Kim, the Hacker's Playbook, 2nd edition. Let me see what else.
Isn't there some O'Reilly book in there somewhere?
Practice of Network Security Monitoring by Richard Baitlick. So we've got a bunch of ones on there. We got Anthony Robinson, DA667's book, Building Virtual Machine Labs, is also up for survey. So if you are interested in reading any of these or other books that are on there, you got to join our Slack, get in the book club track, and hook it up. He's taking input now, so it's out there. So BrakeSec Podcast at BrakeSec on Twitter. You can follow me, Brian Brake, at Brian Brake on Twitter, BrynBrake. We're on pretty much every audio outlet you want. Player FM, iTunes. Please leave feedback if you use iTunes. We appreciate it. Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify. I don't use it, but all the hip kids do these days, from what I understand. So all that's in the show notes if you want information on that. And I'm sure Mr. Gough and Mr. Boettcher will come out with a BDIR podcast Twitter eventually. And so that was it. First show of the year. We're still working. We're still working things out with the rhythm. But Mr. Gough won't be back next week. He'll be on his own show. So
I'm still building hardware, and as you can see, I just broke my headset. So I fortunately have ordered a new headset. So how's that for timing?
I wondered what was up with that. Is that brand new?
Yeah. No, I've had it a while.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
It literally, as I'm adjusting, it snapped.
Look, I got a $6 pair of Panasonic earbuds that I'm using. You don't have to get fancy. So, all right. That was it. Oh, his audio just died on him. So, yeah. without, we're going to get out of here. This is episode 1 for 2018. Everyone have a great week. Breaking Down Security's out. Later.
Bye.
Keep it secure.
And we're done. Wow, what? Keep it secure? I mean, that's so vague.
Hey, man.
Don't get on.
Makes them wanting more. What does that mean?
Don't suck.
Don't suck.
Suck less. You can't use suck less because that's isn't that what Jack always says? Suck less.
I don't know.
Suck less.